I'm Jabin, and you are watching RPTV. In the heart of Regent Park and across Toronto Centre, over 70% of residents are renters, many facing rising rents, maintenance issues, and fears of renoviction and demovictions. Recently, community members gathered at the Wellesley Community Centre for a powerful conversation on tenant rights, hosted by Councillor Chris Moise. As part of his Toronto Centre Talks, a roundtable forum series for Toronto Centre residents to discuss various issues and topics. This session of the Toronto Centre Talks brought together housing advocates, legal experts, and frontline workers to equip residents with the tools to understand their rights and push back against unfair housing practices. With so many Regent Park residents directly impacted by these challenges, this event offered not just information, but real resources and solidarity.
So welcome to our TC Talks on tenant rights. And of course, TC stands for Toronto Centre. Some people do ask that. What does TC stand for? Thank you all for taking the time to join us this evening for our last TC Talks for 2025. I've been doing this now for, I think, 3 years now, and it's been very informative and fruitful. My name is Councillor Chris Moise. I am the Councillor of Toronto Centre, Ward 13. This is the probably second year hosting TC Talks. And we host these panels to bring expert information to you with an opportunity for you to ask questions directly to our special guest. We have a very eventful evening with a lot of to cover. I know you have all been looking forward to our diverse professional panel discussion about what tenant rights are, how tenant rights are defined, and how we are continuing to expand that definition to protect the residents of Toronto.
The evening began with an overview of the agenda, which featured 4 key presentations.
So we're going to start off with a presentation from the District Manager and Divisional Engagement Lead from RentSafeTO of the City of Toronto, followed by a presentation from ACORN Canada about how to stand against intimidation, outstanding repairs, ageism, and renovictions. Then a presentation about housing law from Neighbourhood Legal Services. And finally, a presentation about the city's housing trusteeship program from Neighbourhood Information Post. Our panelists will provide some context from a policy lens, community advocacy lens, legal lens, and a practical programming lens.
Leading off the evening were Alana and Jeanette from RentSafeTO, a city-run enforcement program that inspects and rates apartment buildings to ensure safe living conditions for tenants.
So first up is going to be RentSafeTO. Alana Riaz is the Divisional Engagement Lead, acting for the RentSafeTO team in Municipal Licensing and Standards, better known as MLS. Alana has been a supervisor in MLS since 2024. Prior to working in MLS, Alana has worked in the City of Toronto's Children's Services and Revenue Services Division. Accompanying Alana is Janet Stockel. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Janet is the district manager for the RentSafeTO team in MLS. Janet has been district manager in RentSafeTO since 2019 and has worked in MLS since 2014. Prior to working in MLS, Janet was a City of Toronto prosecutor for close to 15 years. And so without any further ado, I'll ask our 2 panelists, Alana and Janet, come on up and do your thing.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alana. I started as a supervisor with RentSafeTO. I'm currently in an acting position doing divisional engagement lead, so that's why I'm here with you all tonight. So thank you for having me. So today we are going to be talking about RentSafeTO, apartment building standards. All right. So just an overview of the program. So RentSafeTO is a bylaw enforcement program with the City of Toronto. It was established in 2017. We ensure that building maintenance is being done in apartment buildings across the city of Toronto. And this program does apply to all of the apartment buildings in the city of Toronto that are 3 stories or more and 10 units or more. So it does total about 3,600 apartment buildings throughout the city that are registered with the program. So today we'll just quickly talk about the registration process for buildings that qualify. We'll talk about building evaluations. We also conduct building audits, which we will talk about, and then responding to service requests as well. So registrations and renewals. So every apartment building, like I said, that are three stories or more and 10 units or more are required to register with the RentSafeTO program. Once they're registered, building owners are required to renew annually and also pay an annual fee. And that fee is typically due on July 1st every year. So we're coming up to when fees are due. And for 2025, the registration and renewal fee is $26.75 per residential unit. So every apartment building has a different renewal fee to pay, depending on the size. So we'll get into evaluations and audits. So the evaluation process. So this is something that we actually just finished, we're actually just starting today, our apartment building evaluation. So all the apartment buildings are evaluated every 2 years. An evaluation consists of an inspection of all of the common areas of the building, hallways, lobby, compactor rooms, exterior as well. And each element is given a building or a score between 1 and 3. 1 being the lowest and 3 being high. And it reflects how well the property is in compliance with the property standards bylaw as well as the apartment building standards bylaw. And so how this process works, the evaluation is scheduled by a bylaw officer. They show up on the day of the evaluation. They conduct the walkthrough and the inspection, typically with property management or the owner present. And then there's a final score that is established once it's all complete. So just a brief history of the building evaluation tool, because it has undergone some changes in the most recent years. So originally, every apartment building was evaluated every 3 years, dependent on how well they scored the previous year. The evaluation was only comprised of 20 categories that were all equally weighted, and in-suite conditions were not reflected at all. Officers had their discretion to be able to score all the elements from 1 to 5. So it was quite a large scoring that they could provide. And then only buildings that scored 50% or below were then audited. So in 2021, there was a redesign, lots of consultation that was done with different stakeholders to determine what changes would need to be made to improve the evaluation tool. So in June 2023, the new evaluation tool was launched, which is what we currently use now. Okay, so the current evaluation tool, it is made up of 50 different categories in the common areas of the building, and it also includes mandatory logs and plans that the owner must have and be able to provide to us on the day of the evaluation. The categories are now scored between 1 and 3. Each category is weighted differently based on immediate health and safety concerns. And right now, buildings are evaluated once every 2 years. The other component that also began in last year at the beginning of the year was reactive data. So the proactive score is what you get on the day of the evaluation. The reactive data is what happens after. So this is a dynamic score. It's updated daily based on what we have on our system. And anytime we issue an order to comply, or property standards order, or a notice of violation, it actually will temporarily deduct the building evaluation score. So this is a reflection of both in-suite and common area issues that tenants are bringing to our attention. We're conducting investigations. We're seeing that there's a problem, a deficiency, and we're issuing paperwork. And now it's affecting their building score temporarily. So for every property standards order or notice of violation that's issued, it's a negative 1%. And then for an emergency order, it's a negative 2% until they comply with it. So just as an example, in this case, for example, a building is scored 75%. This is their proactive score based on those 50 different categories. Let's say perhaps, we have two separate investigations. We've issued two property standards orders. That building score is now 73% temporarily until they comply with the orders that we've issued. So the further impact of the building evaluation score is that the scores are posted publicly. So anybody can actually access the scores through our website. There's an interactive map. So if you just Google RentSafeTO interactive map, it'll come up. You can actually search a property that is in a registered apartment building, and it will actually show you what the building scored. It will also show you open property standards orders, which I think there is a slide further down that we can you'll take a closer look, but it does provide a lot of information about what is happening at the building. The second impact of the evaluation score is the audits. So any building, all the buildings, once we're done the evaluations, the bottom 2.5% that score are then audited the following year. So an audit is a more comprehensive building inspection. So we kind of go together as a team. We actually just finished our audit season a few weeks ago. But we have a team of bylaw officers that come. They do walk top to bottom, and any deficiency that they find, they will issue property standards orders and notices of violation for everything that they see that day. The other thing that they do is tenant engagement. So they will also go door to door, engage with all the tenants, educate them about the RentSafeTO program, and ask them if there's anything that is ongoing in their units that they would like to let us know about. The third component in which building scores impact is targeted tenant engagement. So this is relatively new, but what ends up happening is if a building score drops 5% or more for 2 consecutive months, it does get flagged, and we do get notified, in which it means that targeted engagement will occur. So myself and a few other bylaw officers, we will attend the building. Again, we will door knock. We will educate tenants about the RentSafeTO program, and we will ask if there is anything in your unit or perhaps in the common areas of the building that we don't know about, that you believe that there's an issue that you've already reported to property management and it's going unattended to. And so we're also at that time accepting service requests from tenants as well, and just providing general information. So this is just I know it's really small, but it's just a sneak peek of what the online interactive map actually looks like. So it does provide just a brief overview of what the current building evaluation score is, what the proactive score is, what the reactive score is. It will actually show you how the building how it's scored in all the different categories. And then it will also show you if there is an open property standards order or notice of violation that we have issued. And I believe it will also tell you when it expires, so when they have to comply by. Service requests. So service requests, we accept all year round, and they are a very big component of what RentSafeTO does. So we'll start with what RentSafeTO can help with. So we can address vital services like no electricity, no water, low or no heat, breaches of security, property maintenance, snow or ice clearing, things like that. If there's damage, broken windows, cabinets, peeling paint, leaks, sometimes that happens as well. So we can address that. Common area cleanliness, as well as pests and waste management concerns. Things that are outside of RentSafeTO authority is mold. So mold is actually a public health issue. We are not subject matter experts. We cannot confirm if something is mold. So this is something that is typically addressed by Toronto Public Health. But if there are additional concerns that are contributing to the potential mold, that is something that we can look at. The other thing is that technically we do address, but it does also fall under public health, is bed bugs. So public health does have a bed bug unit in which they can support residents who are having some challenges with getting rid of bed bugs. They are a very small team, but we do address them as well as pests. So I will just point that out. Another thing we don't address is anything related to the fire code. That would be Toronto Fire Services that would have to do their own inspections and their own enforcement action for that. Building code permits and construction is usually done by Toronto Buildings. Elevator operations are the Technical Standards and Safety Authority, TSSA. So they are the subject matter experts in the mechanics of an elevator. That would be who you would go to if you have concerns about that. Electrical issues are the Electrical Safety Authority. Residential Tenancy Act would be the LTB. And then anything related to theft or other criminal matters is something that Toronto Police Services would have to address. So we do hear about all of these concerns on a regular basis, and we do our best to try and refer tenants to the appropriate resources and supports to get the help that they need. So yeah, if that happens and we end up hearing from you based on these concerns, we'll just try and help redirect. So just a quick overview of our investigation process. So when we receive a service request, so the expectation is that tenants are reporting whatever problem it is that they're having. You're reporting it to property management, the landlord, or the landlord first. For vital services, the property owner has 24 hours to respond and attend to the issue. For all other requests, building operators typically give them about 7 days. If there is no response received, we do encourage residents to contact 311, submit a service request, and we will receive it on our end. And so 311 will, so a lot of people don't know, 311 is a hub of, you can call the city with any problem that you have, you call 311 and they triage it to the appropriate division based on what you're describing. So 311 will actually create that service request to you, and it then gets pushed through to RentSafeTO. Once we receive it, a bylaw officer will be assigned to the service request, and response times vary based on what exactly the concern is. We work off of a priority response model. So again, vital services are obviously a priority 1 for us. Things such as property maintenance, priority 2 might give us about 5 days to respond. Okay. So after we get the service request, the bylaw officer will then contact you, usually by phone. They want to gather more information. They will want to schedule an inspection with you to come out and actually take a look at what the issue is. If it's a common area issue, they don't necessarily need you to attend. They can do it themselves, but they will let you know that they will be doing that and to take their own photos. If you don't respond to the bylaw officer, they will usually do what they can to get in touch with you, whether it be by phone, by email. They'll wait a few days, they'll try again. If there's no response, the file will be closed. So it's really important that we're kind of getting a response back so that we can follow up accordingly. Once that's all said and done, so the bylaw officer will attend the property and determine if there is a deficiency found. If there is no deficiency to the bylaw found, the file will be closed. The investigation is done. If there is a problem found and there is a violation to the bylaw, the bylaw officer will then determine what the appropriate next steps will be, whether it be if education needs to happen to property management, if a property standards order needs to be issued, they will determine what the next steps are going to be based on the situation. Every situation is very different. There are different challenges with every situation. So we kind of allow them to assess the situation to then determine what they're going to do next. If an order or notice of violation is issued, the bylaw officer will reattend once the date for compliance has expired. So usually for a property standards order, it's about 30 days. If it's something in suite, they will want to come back and do a reinspection, take a look at what has been done, what hasn't been done. And then if it's resolved, the file will be closed. If not, again, they will determine what needs to happen next or whereabouts in the process the landlord is to complying with the issued order. Okay. So in terms of advocating for tenants' rights, RentSafeTO, we do uphold the right to safe and clean homes, obviously by attending to service requests, conducting building evaluations, building audits. We do firmly believe that this is of great importance to us. So something that we try to do every day. We also ensure landlords understand their responsibilities. There's a lot of landlord and owner education that has to happen and does happen to make sure that they're aware of what they're responsible for doing and that they're held accountable when they are not doing those things. So we do that. We also engage with tenants and provide access to information. So as I said, we do tenant engagement sessions at properties. We do building walkthroughs. We do community events such as these, just to make sure that tenants are also getting education and aware of what is available to them. We promote proactive maintenance of buildings. So by doing these building evaluations, we are hoping that we are able to give a property owner a general overview of how well they are complying with the bylaw. We understand that when a building is given a score, just because it's scored a 90 doesn't necessarily, it's good, but it also means that there's about 10% that they're missing. So we're always looking for ways to be able to give property owners feedback and letting them know, hey, you need to actually fix some of these things to improve not only the score, but the living environment for everyone in the building. We also connect tenants with resources as well, whether it be tenant advocacy groups, legal aid, other city divisions. We do our best to kind of make sure that tenants, regardless of what their concerns are, we're able to connect them with the proper supports as well. So some of the challenges that we experience when trying to advocate for tenants' rights or kind of keep it in the forefront of our minds while we're doing our work every day. So lease agreement disputes. This comes up a lot. So things like rent increases, affordability, harassment, evictions. These things do fall under the landlord-tenant board. So again, we would do our best to provide tenants with resources to be able to address some of those challenges, but it does fall outside of RentSafeTO's scope to be able to address. The other thing that is a challenge is working within the bylaw framework. So we are governed by the Toronto Municipal Code and the work that we do, which doesn't always encompass the entirety of a situation. So for example, frequent service disruptions. Sometimes that is more challenging to enforce because oftentimes they are planned, and the complaint is that it's constantly happening. They're constantly planning these service disruptions. It makes it really difficult for us to enforce because the requirement is that they are at least notifying you. So again, it does make it a little bit challenging on our end, but something we definitely try our best to work through. Another challenge is the reliance on skilled trades. So I touched on this a little bit earlier. We are not subject matter experts in mold. We are not subject matter experts in pests, HVAC, things like that. And so we are reliant on some of the reports that we get. As long as they are by a licensed technician, we kind of have to decide how we're going to move forward based on the information that we're being provided. And so this can also help, this can kind of delay investigations as well, because now we're involving other people. We need to schedule contractors, things like that. So sometimes that can be really challenging. Resourcing. So we are a team of about 41 bylaw officers, 5 supervisors, 1 engagement lead, which is myself, and 1 manager, which is Janet here. And we are overseeing all these apartment buildings. And so it is a lot of work, and we do our best to make sure that the standards that we're trying to enforce are upheld. But yeah, I think the more we're hoping that the more resourcing we get, the more the program evolves and grows, that we'd be able to do more improvements for the program as well. Last thing before I move on, my last point that also makes it challenging is sometimes our neighbors. So sometimes what ends up happening, what can make it also really challenging for RentSafeTO is when there are issues between tenants. And sometimes people forget that they're shared living spaces. And so that also makes it kind of challenging sometimes. So it's really important for everyone to remember that, we're all being respectful of the shared communal spaces that we are living in. And then just some quick highlights about our program. So in 2024, we conducted over 1,800 building evaluations. We'll do about the same this year, maybe a little bit more. We also conducted 47 building audits in 2024. This year, I can confirm we did conduct 56 building audits that we just finished. In terms of issued orders or notices of violation, just over 1,900. We also attended 194 stakeholder engagement events with the community as well. RentSafeTO did win a City Manager's Award in terms of implementing the new building evaluation app with all of the changes, and then also bylaw officers there's an app that they're able to use to actually do the scoring live while they're at the property rather than having to do it all manually. And then also the RentSafeTO interactive map was also launched, which they were recognized for as well. And again, I spoke about that a little bit earlier, and that's all available to you all. And just so these things, they help us be more accessible, and they help us be a little bit more transparent with the communities that we're serving to be able to share that information with you. And then lastly, again, targeted engagement. This was something that was introduced in 2024. And yeah, I think this kind of just shows the involvement and the growth of the program. You know, we're doing more to make sure that, you know, people are complying with the city's bylaws, and that the homes that you're living in are safe and maintained. So I'll leave you with this. If you're having any property standards issues, whether it be in your unit or in common areas of the building, please make sure that you are giving property management an opportunity to attend to it. So letting them know via service requests or work order, however it is that your building does it. And if they are not attending to the issue, please contact us at 311. We will have a bylaw officer come out and do an inspection and an investigation into the issue. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Alana, and for Jennifer providing support.
Next on the panel was Stacey Sample, a tenant leader with the Downtown ACORN chapter, which includes Toronto Centre's Ward 13. Stacey has organized tenants in her own building and neighboring ones to fight for fair housing. Let's hear from Stacey as she takes the floor.
Next up is Stacey Sample. Is a leader in the Downtown ACORN chapter, including Ward 13 Toronto Centre. She has organized her own building and neighboring buildings to win reductions in above the guidelines rent increases and to win countless repairs. Stacey has helped champion and advance ACORN's campaigns for landlord licensing, banning rent evictions, and winning tenant climate justice. Stacey is passionate about getting her neighbors involved in learning their rights and standing up together as tenants. Stacey, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk about the tenant rights and, of course, Toronto ACORN. So what is ACORN? Okay. We're a community union made up of low and moderate income people. We win on issues including tenant rights, fair banking, affordable housing, and disability justice. Many social justice issues that affect many people across the community. We are a local and national organization. We're a member-driven organization, meaning our campaigns come from our members at the grassroots level. We now have over 180,000 members across Canada. We have chapters all across Canada, and just 6 chapters alone all throughout the GTA. One thing about organizing tenants is knowing your rights. It's one thing that when I joined ACORN, I was amazed how many tenants didn't know. And when we visited them and tried to get their neighbors engaged, we found out superintendents, landlords were regularly harassing them, finding out who was attending, not to do it, and also threatening evictions. We use these sections in the Residential Tenancy Act often, Section 83, that landlord, if they were to apply for eviction, they refuse the grant for that application because the tenant has the right to organize. A landlord will intimidate, so please please have the support of ACORN that you get together. There is power in numbers. And again, too, as I mentioned, especially I find superintendents, once we attend buildings and we hear or get threatened by them or their security guards, we do mention this section 233 of the Residential Tenancy Act, that we have that right also to organize and develop an organized association. Excuse me, I'm a little tongue-tied right now. So just some myths about your rights. If you get involved with a tenant association, a union, your landlord can evict me. No, the Residential Tenancy Act says a landlord cannot evict or interfere with a tenant trying to organize. And then another question we often get, I can't invite groups like ACORN, FMTA, and No Dem Evictions to come and help out in our meetings. You can invite tenant organizers to your home like any other guest. Please, both ACORN's out there right at the back there, just get some contact information. We'd be more than happy to meet you and assist you. The landlord can forbid me from holding meetings in the common area or in my unit. No, they can't. If if the lobby isn't large enough to meet with you and your neighbors, we often meet just in the front of the building, as long as we don't block the entrances on that, so that we give access to everybody, the general public. And the landlord can prevent me from communicating, talking, knocking on doors, or delivering flyers to my fellow tenants. Again, the landlord cannot obstruct tenants from trying to organize a tenant association or union. We've been actually told many times they're going to call the police and everything. Even the police have shown up from time to time. Please continue. We usually have people that actually live in that building. They're free to invite us and also knock on the doors to educate them, knowing your rights and standing up to a landlord who may be aggressive or harassing. One of the big campaigns for ACORN is Healthy Homes. Huge advocate on that, maintenance, repairs, bylaw, and enforcement. Property standards and your rights. So your landlord is legally required to keep your building in a state of good repair, or SOGR. That was brought up a lot as an acronym at the city budget meeting. So that includes pest control treatment for bed bugs, cockroaches, mice, and more. Heat in the winter, access to hot and cold water, working stove, oven, and fridge, safe unit and common areas, elevator maintenance and repairs in your unit. And that's just the start of the list. There is so many more things to address. Your landlord must maintain these standards even if you are behind in rent or currently in the landlord and tenant board. The one thing that ACORN campaigns for, go ahead, is landlord licensing. ACORN organizes actions, rallies, letter campaigns, speaking at City Hall, and obviously being in the news. We met with the mayor on Saturday at, ironically, 11 Bergamot, one of your slides. And she actually also signed all of our demands and agreed that actually there's got to be a review with RentSafe that it shouldn't have passed at 90%. So the demand highlights are city inspections in unit. We're constantly, ACORN is engaging with RentSafeTO regularly to actually increase the inspection in units. There seems to be some communication misunderstanding with respect to that. And also more fees on the fines of bad landlords. It's amazing what we've discovered across the GTA of what landlords are getting away with. The city forces the landlord to do repairs, as again, Mayor Chow actually on Saturday had mentioned that what the city should be doing is if the landlord is not doing those repairs, the city will do them. And then the city will then take that cost and put it on the landlord's property tax. And then, of course, landlord licensing, similar to DineSafe. We actually met with RentSafeTO here not too long ago, and we asked for that similar program like DineSafe with the buildings for green, yellow, and red cards to identify buildings that are safe and others that need warning. Unfortunately, our lovely friend here, Janet, actually accused us that we wanted to shame landlords. we're going to be talking more about that, hopefully, ideally with them in the future. ACORN has won with the city. The amazing work that ACORN has done, we've been around since 2005 now, 20 years, just over actually. So in 2008, multi-residential apartment building program. 2017, we actually won with the city the RentSafeTO program that's been around now for 8 years. And then 2021 to 23, we got more inspectors for the RentSafeTO program and more protocols to win repairs. And then just recently in 2024 to 25, we got more inspectors again for the RentSafeTO. Again, at the annual budget meeting, the standard operating procedure is coming soon. So how to win repairs with your landlord and RentSafeTO. So remember, your landlord cannot ask you for extra money to do repairs. Again, when we visited on Saturday at 11 Bergamot, we discovered the landlord was charging them extra money for repairs done to drywall or appliances, etc. Tenants in private buildings, co-ops, and TCHC need to call 311 for help, obviously. But going back to how to win repairs with your landlord and RentSafeTO. So as actually Lana had mentioned, submit your maintenance request to your landlord first and take a photo. We recommend cell phones nowadays. We need to use that technology. You need your proof. So take a photo, especially with some landlords, they use that old school maintenance request forms with those 3 copies, etc. So after 7 days, call 311 and make a file about your maintenance request. Ask for the RentSafeTO program and write down the file number they give you. And the city will ideally be in touch soon. So organizing as a group. There are about 45 RentSafeTO officers for 3,500 buildings in Toronto. That's a lot of work. That's why we attend city budget each year. We keep asking them for more money because they need a better program to address such a wide population throughout the Toronto area. To effectively see repairs, to get a group of tenants together, ACORN also does petitions, meetings, we send work orders together, and we organize with ACORN, and again, we get lots of news coverage. We're regularly, just have to reach out to the ACORN office. We have monthly chapter meetings in, again, the 6 different chapters across the GTA, and also the lovely organizer staffs, and that they are just great at approaching and helping you out with anything that you may need. The campaign to ban rent evictions. This is coming into effect at the end of July, folks. This is something that I worked a lot on with as we attended City Hall, as ACORN's been fighting for this for quite some time. So we saw that there was a rise in rent evictions when the landlord renovated their unit as a way to displace tenants or increase the rent. So in 2017 in Ontario, 3,012s and M13s were filed with the tribunal. In 2022, there were almost 6,000 NTs at 12, and M13s filed, and rent evictions had become an epidemic. It's one way that a landlord gets away with getting rid of older tenants so that they can just put a slab of paint on there and then charge usually about 45% more, and that with it to get more money for that piece of property. ACORN's campaign demands to ban rent eviction. When units are renovated, the tenant has the right of refusal to return your renovated unit with the original lease, so the original rent. During the renovation, the landlord must pay the difference of the rent for the tenant at the temporary unit, and the landlord pays for moving costs to and from the unit. This is key things to remember, folks, because as it goes into place, we're going to be watching to make sure that landlords don't do things on the sly. They're famous for doing that. And that City of Toronto is going to ensure that the licensing requirements, approval stage, information and education, the tenants are all put in place. And the tenant does have that right to refusal to come back to that tenant, to that same unit once it's been repaired and be paying that original rent. So in winter of 2024, Hamilton ACORN and allies, got Hamilton to pass the first municipal renovation license in Ontario. Hamilton was very key. That way, Toronto started looking, and in fall of 2024, the Toronto ACORN and allies got Toronto to win a renovation license, which will officially be effective at the end of the month in July. We're very proud of that. We now have other municipalities in Ottawa, London, and I just heard today, actually, Kitchener now is looking at getting a renovation bylaw. Unfortunately, Doug Ford, provincial government, is not doing his job, so the municipalities are stepping up. So the campaign for full rent control, banning above the guideline rent increases, better known as AGIs. That's how originally I got involved, actually, with ACORN. I was at the dog park at Allen Gardens, a neighbor on Carlton, actually, with another dog. They handed me a flyer. I discovered ACORN because I used to live out in the suburbs all my life. This is the first time I've lived downtown Toronto. I've always worked down here, mind you. But having said that, I learned about ACORN and I started attending meetings. After the first few meetings, I've gotten involved. And with the AGIs, again, with the provincial government, we're asking them to rewrite the Residential Tenancy Act. They have to be banned or just taken off the Residential Tenancy Act. Because even just REITs, Real Estate Investment Trust, corporate landlords, as better known, they've already admitted that it's an amazing revenue opportunity for them. And they get to do all these capital projects and the tenant gets to pay. And it's just not fair. It's an investment property for them. For us, it's simply a roof over the head that we'll never own. Next slide, please. So every year, the provincial government, lovely Doug Ford, sets a percentage which landlords can legally increase rent. In 2025, the legal amount is 2.5%. In addition to this yearly increase, landlords can apply for the above guideline rent increases, or as I said, AGIs. So the landlords are able to apply to the Landlord Tenant Board for reasons including major capital work that has been paid for and finished, like balconies or elevators. Conservation programs have been paid for and finished, like low energy lights or low flow toilets. Safety elements have been paid for and finished, like security cameras. Accessibility elements have been paid for and finished, like wheelchair ramps, automatic door openers. And then there's been extraordinary increase in the landlord's, or if there's been extraordinary increase in the landlord's property tax. Now, the maximum increase a landlord can ask for is 9% over a period of 3 years. Okay. Unfortunately, with all of these capital projects, it just amazes me that, well, for instance, one of my AGI items was installing new toilets. We didn't ask for them. We don't pay the water bill, but we had to pay the bill of, I think it was $230,000 among 75 tenants. Go ahead. So how to fight your AGI application? The landlord will first apply to the LTB for AGI, and then the LTB will send a date for your case management hearing on Zoom. Don't miss your case management hearing. If you do, actually, the adjudicator or mediator, Sakana will correct me on that one. They will automatically fine for the landlord if nobody shows up. It's important to show up. And also to, if you do not have Zoom, your local legal clinic can help you attend. Afterwards, submit your argument against the landlord's evidence for the AGI to the LTB for the written hearing. Only pay the approved percentage the tribunal approves after the written hearing. It's one thing I found actually with many AGIs that tenants are paying just when they get the rent increase notice, they just go ahead and pay it. They don't argue it. They don't question it. And it just... For instance, again, my AGI in my building, we got it down by 0.6%, I believe it was, for the larger increased tenants. And people now have to fight with the property management to get money back because they overpaid. So you wait for that tribunal to approve and get your order from the tribunal before you pay. However, saying that, remember to put that money aside because you only have a certain period amount of time once that order is issued from the tribunal to pay that amount. And so you don't want the landlord also trying to evict you after the fact. So remember, letters from the landlord saying that they have applied for a rent increase doesn't mean anything. So wait for the paperwork from the tribunal saying that they've received the landlord's application. You do not have to pay the rent increase until the tribunal approves it. I just said this. And however, this process can take years. And typically I've heard for the most cases, it's 2 years for an AGI application to be heard. And if the AGI is approved, you will need to pay the increase from the date your landlord applied, which can be thousands of dollars, depending on the percentage. I know typically with the tribunal, there is that process of about 3 months to pay any of the increase that you might be outstanding owed for the 2 years. But you can request a longer period. And of course, it's up to management to agree to that longer period. So ACORN Ontario's campaign for provincial rent control. Ontario ACORN's research shows that an AGI data for 2022 shows that 78% of applications filed are by big corporate landlords. Over the past 2 decades, the number of AGIs have gone up by 107%. Sometimes landlords receive grants from the government to do green renovations, then put these costs on the tenant to double dip and make a profit. There's a lot of federal money out there actually for accessibility and climate change, etc., that we're not aware of. I've done some research for some buildings actually for those 2 items, and the landlord then proceeds to try to actually charge the tenants under an AGI application. Ontario ACORN's demands is obviously, as I mentioned earlier, is to ban AGIs. The landlord must keep building in repairs. Otherwise, they purposefully let them fall apart so they can justify themselves doing a capital expenditure and then can apply for an AGI. Very similar to rent evictions. Rent evictions we saw as a key as well, that they would neglect the building, so it'd be in such a state of repair that they'd have to shut the building down to say it needed to be renovated, when really they could have prevented that as well. Not just the other motivation, getting an old tenant out so they could charge more rent. So Ontario ACORN's actions include MPP offices in Ottawa, Toronto, London, Hamilton, and Peel. We do petitions and we do outreach with the MPP offices, and we also engage with the city as well, but we also invite them to events. As I mentioned, we met recently with Mayor Chow and a RentSafeTO officer at 11 Bergamot. Very positive meeting. She signed off on all her demands, and the mayor's office has actually reached out to us to actually hold monthly building meetings like that from going forward. So we're hoping actually we can arrange for 500 Dawes Road. And then having said that is it as well, we were engaged with RentSafeTO because that program is somewhat fairly new and needs vast improvement. Unfortunately, when we did meet with them, I just got wind of the Ombudsman report. And obviously, if people heard in the news, the Ombudsman did not give them a glowing report. There needs to be a lot of cleanup there in that area, unfortunately. So ACORN's demands for Toronto community housing. That's another program that I know from other ACORN members we engage with a lot of. And in June of 2024, ACORN members in Toronto Community Housing organized a huge meeting with the mayor and the director of the Toronto Community Housing Corporation. ACORN members pressured them to sign on to the following demands: hire more staff and tenant service hubs in the client care center, mandate annual sensitivity training for all TCHC staff, prioritize staff recruitment and retention from TCHC tenants, do all outstanding work orders, schedule building-wide pest control treatments in all TCHC buildings, provide free assistance for tenants to prepare the units for pest control, provide access to trauma-informed mental health and addiction services, increase funding to the violence reduction program to all TCHC buildings, audit CCTV systems and conduct necessary repairs, and work with ACORN holding regular meetings to track progress on these demands. for TCHC. It's run by the city, and it's one thing, as I said, I know members. I haven't personally been in that, but I've heard lots of things with respect to how run down and how poor is being run. So we're very grateful that over the last year now, we finally gotten the city's attention, and we're starting to see gradual progress in that area. Now we're having regular meetings with TCHC to ensure follow-ups. So we've run accessibility changes and onward. I don't say I can't read. Okay. So as I said, we've got 6 chapters across the GTA. There's one down for this area in particular, the downtown chapter meeting. I refer to always meeting the first Thursday of every month. Because of Pride, which I absolutely love this time of year, we're meeting the second Thursday this year, in July as a change. But remember the first Thursday at the lovely 519. They're a great community center. I adore the staff there. And of course, too, if you don't live in this area, reach out to Field 22 at ACORN Canada or go to visit the website. And of course, make a call. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. And thank you to ACORN for all the work that you have done over the many, many years and continue to do.
The next speaker was Suchana Sundararajan, a dedicated housing lawyer at Neighbourhood Legal Services. She holds a Juris Doctor from the University of Windsor and has spent her career advocating for tenants across Ontario. Let's hear how Suchana and her team are working to protect tenant rights across Toronto.
Hi, everyone. I'm Suchana. I'm a housing lawyer at Neighbourhood Legal Services. First, I can start off giving you a bit of an overview of what Neighbourhood Legal Services is. I'm one of 2 housing lawyers there. We also do immigration law and also social assistance. We are located at Queen and Jarvis, and we provide free legal services to low-income tenants. There's a financial eligibility criteria and also a catchment criteria, geographic location criteria. So if you live within this region, east of Yonge, south of Bloor, west of DVP, you would probably qualify for our services. And we're free because we're funded by Legal Aid of Ontario. So I kind of explained a bit of what we do. If you do have a housing issue, you can always come into our office. We will triage you to see if you can be booked in for an appointment with one of myself or one of the other lawyers. The common tenant issues that we see are maintenance issues, harassment issues, issues at TCHC, often having to do with subsidy, maintaining the subsidy, annual reviews, submitting documents. There's also a few tenant versus tenant issues that we see, and grievances with co-ops. So if you come to our office, you might get an appointment, you might get brief information on legal information, or in some cases, based on the strength of the case, we can also represent tenants. So as you guys have already kind of heard in previous presentations, the law that governs tenant rights is the Residential Tenancies Act. It governs specific types of tenants. So tenants who are not living with their landlord. So if you're sharing a kitchen and bathroom with your landlord, then you don't fall under the Residential Tenancies Act. Other things like if you're in a motel or emergency, like shelters don't fall under the RTA. Social housing falls under the RTA. And generally speaking, if you fall under the RTA, you generally have more rights than if you don't. Next slide. So the most common things that I see is the right for maintenance and repair from your landlord, and the right to live in the right to reasonable enjoyment, right? To be without substantial interference from your landlord or even sometimes other tenants. When it comes to repair, for the very starting point is that the landlord has to be aware of the maintenance issue, and there has to be a record that they're aware of it. So if you have submitted a work order, keep a copy of that, right? Keep some paper trail that you're making these complaints. Same thing with if your landlord is harassing you or substantial interference, and you want to keep a record, document what is happening, right? When it's happening, who is causing the issue, the names, because these are all very important when you are if you are filing an application at the landlord and tenant board. So I will talk more about each application. So these are a couple of the tenant applications that you could file at the landlord tenant board. The main ones are the T2, which is for harassment, substantial interference, and the T6 is for maintenance. So when you file an application, on the applications are on the LTB website, right? On the application, you have to detail the issues in a very thorough way, right? So dates, names, like what is happening, provide that in a chronological order. And all of the applications that go through the legal system, if you've ever been through the legal system, everything comes down to evidence. So pictures, like was previously stated, pictures, recordings, videos, those are all what your case will come down to. Right. Without that, it's very hard to push a file forward and be successful. Okay. And you on these applications, you can ask for remedies. A lot of the remedies, or the most important one, is damages, right? And then getting the landlord to do repairs. And I hear a lot of tenants say, "Oh, I don't want damages. I don't want money. That's not what this is about. I just want them to do the repairs," right? But the damages is what gives the landlord incentive to do the repairs, right? I see a lot of tenant applications that won't have any monetary damages. And once it gets to the board, you can't make changes to the application, right? So those details need to be there at the beginning. Okay, next slide. So this is the T2 application. It kind of is a catch-all for everything that isn't maintenance. Like if you don't have vital services, the landlord has shut off the water or anything like that, it would be a T2. Those are the relevant sections of the law, which we don't really need to go over that. But one thing to remember is that when filing a T2 or T6, it must be within 1 year of when the issue started. So if it's been 2 years since there was an issue, you're out of the limitation period and the application will probably not be successful. All right, next slide. So same thing with the T6. Again, the unit must be in a good state of repair and fit for habitation. We heard this from Stacy's presentation. The same things have to go into the T6 application, right? Details, exactly what is happening, right? In a clear chronological order. One thing I will say about bringing any tenant applications is that if you probably know the LTB is so backlogged, it takes months to even year or more to have an application heard, right? So filing applications, it should be done in tandem with other avenues, right? So calling 311, having the city bylaw inspection, organizing, right? This alone isn't enough to have the tenant rights insured, right? Just because of the way the legal system is set up. Okay, next slide. So I just left some more resources here for you guys. I didn't want to get too much into the nitty-gritty of all the law and stuff, but if you guys do have a housing issue, you're always welcome to walk into our office. You can fill out an online intake, and then you can be triaged from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. Yes, go ahead. As Susanna was speaking, I saw people frantically taking notes and taking on their phones and taking pictures of these slides. If you reach out to my office or speak to my staff in the back, we're happy to provide you with the slides if you so desire, either a hard copy or a soft copy.
Rounding out the panel was Drew Dice, team lead for the Voluntary Housing Trusteeship Program at Neighbourhood Information Post.
Last but not least is Drew Dice, is from the Hockley Valley in Southern Ontario. He graduated with honors in community services work from Trios College and has been working with the Neighbourhood Information Post for the past 9 years. He's currently the team lead for the Voluntary Housing Trusteeship Program, the Neighbourhood Information Post. He also teaches mindfulness, which I love, aside from his work in housing advocacy and community programming.
Let's hear how Drew and his team are making a real difference for tenants across Toronto.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Drew Dice. I've been with the Neighbourhood Information Post for about 9 or 10 years or so. The organization has been around for over 50 years now. It was established by a group of community members in the downtown east side for the community as a place where people could gather and exchange resources. So we have a number of programs. We have the Rent Bank program, energy assistance. We have a walk-in area where people can use computers, check their email. We also have a mail and message service for the community. And we also do a number of activities for some of the Chinese seniors. There's a large population living in the area. So we put on events for them. And sometimes we host the Moss Park Summer Festival as well. But I work specifically for trusteeship, so that's what I'm going to focus on. So we serve over 200 clients a year, and we help prevent dozens of evictions. The people who come to us are tenants who are facing eviction. So our primary goal as trusteeship workers is to keep the client housed. We do offer additional services in relation to their finances, like bill payments and allowance and budgeting. We can help pay off debts and just help with general money management for our clients. Clients benefit many ways by enrolling in our program. Namely, it's about easing the burden and the stress of making sure that rent is paid on time. We help to empower the clients by teaching them about different areas of financing and connecting with resources and teaching them how to do some of their own budgeting, so they can stay on top of everything that's going on in their lives, because it can get hectic. Okay, so to get into the program, it's a bit difficult. Not anyone can apply. There really are only two categories. Right now, most clients come from this the second category, and that is people facing eviction. So this would be people who have been served an N1 or any sort of eviction notice, or even just a written warning from a landlord saying, if you don't catch up on your rent, we're going to have to evict you. And at this point, they can get in touch with our program. Normally, that's not such a direct thing. People often call 311, or they'll call their local political representative, like Councillor Moise, and they will direct that person to our office. We'll do an application for trusteeship, and we submit it to the City of Toronto, who's actually our funders. It's the Coordinated Access Program. And then they will approve it and send it back to us, and we'll start working with the client. I'll talk about those specifics in a moment here. So that's one way to get into the program, is if you're being evicted, come to us and we can help stop that eviction. The other way to get into the program, this is less common, but it is important as well, and that's people exiting homelessness. This would be someone who's living on the streets or in shelters for months or even years. And to make sure that when they do move into their new home, we want to make sure that they stay there. So they may not have the skills to budget on their own, make sure that their rent is being paid on time, so they can sign up to our program, and we're going to teach them those skills so that they can maintain their housing on their own moving forward. So those are the two ways to get into the program. Thank you. Yes, so as I mentioned, primarily we focus on rent and arrears to keep people housed, but we do have some other services. Next slide, please. We can help with monthly bills, Rogers, Bell, standard stuff like that, insurance payments. A lot of our clients are very overwhelmed by anxiety. They have issues staying organized, so we can help with all that stuff. Next slide. We can help with debts. If they're smaller, manageable debts, if someone owes like $10,000 to a credit card company, it's probably better if we refer them to a debt consolidation place, but we can, again, help with smaller debts. We also assist our clients with allowance. That's one big problem that we see, is people just go through their income way too quickly. A lot of our clients, probably most of them, are living on Ontario disability. So it's not a lot of money. So we can help them manage that. We ask all our clients to redirect either all their income or a portion of their income to our office, so we can help them manage it. If a client only wants help with having their rent paid and they want to manage all the other funds on their own, that's fine with us. So we kind of suit our services to meet the individual needs of the client. But the main thing is keeping people housed. Next slide, please. We also assist with financial literacy. This, again, is not a mandatory thing for clients, but those who are interested, who want to empower themselves to become just more confident in again, just handling their own day-to-day finances. We can absolutely assist with that, how to do budgets, how to prepare if you have a fluctuating income, maybe it's not the same every month. Very simple things of that nature. A lot of people ask if we advise on investing and retirement and things like that. No, we absolutely do not. Again, it's just very day-to-day simple financing that we assist with. Next slide. So that is my contact information. I have a bunch of paper flyers that I brought. I will leave those out as well. If you'd like one, you can just come up and ask me. I'll give one. Next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Toronto Rent Bank program. I don't work for the Rent Bank, but the main hub runs out of my office. So I do know a little bit about it, and they wanted me to just speak on it because obviously it's a very important program as well, specifically for preventing evictions. Okay. Yes. So it's just there to keep people housed, essentially. Next slide, please. So it used to be a program that offered loans. So if a person is falling behind on their rent, they could apply for a loan and then pay it back over time. But in the last few years, it's been changed to be strictly grants, and it seems to be working very well that way. There are lots of applicants for the program. And you can see here there are different amounts offered depending on the size of the unit and the situation. There are some eligibility criteria here for our trusteeship program. Generally, we're working with low-income individuals who are living in subsidized housing. But for Rent Bank, it's a bit different. They're looking for people who have steady income, who are not on disability, and who are living in market rent. So that's just the gist of it. But if a person would like to apply for Rent Bank, really they just have to call the call center, and there will be a screening session done. So that's the best way to find out if a person is eligible or not. And yeah, there's that's the number for Rent Bank. There it is. So again, that's just a very brief overview of those two programs. So, all right, thank you very much.
Speakers brought insight from a range of perspectives, from policy and community organizing to legal advocacy and on-the-ground support. After these vital resources and insights were shared, the event transitioned into a panel discussion where attendees had the opportunity to ask questions directly to the speakers. From legal concerns to personal housing challenges, community voices were heard and answered in an open, engaging forum. The discussion wrapped up the final Toronto Centre Talk session for 2025, leaving attendees more informed, empowered, and connected in the fight for housing justice. From rising rents to rent evictions, tenants across Regent Park and Toronto Centre are facing urgent housing challenges. But as we saw at Toronto Centre Talks, knowledge, advocacy, and community are powerful tools for change.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and visit us on all our social media platforms. Please visit our website for more information.